ready to come out. They've a little brown on the top, and they should be a little brown on the bottom. This is what they look like. Hi, I'm Kate, and I'm the cook at the Senior Center. And we're not open right now, but we would be open possibly in the spring, and we really miss you all. We miss your conversation, and I know you enjoy having the social time with people. And today I'm talking about traditions. We all have relatives that gave us good recipes, and we have gone to their house. And our grandparents always had Thanksgiving at their house, and my dad would cook the turkey, and we'd have cousins and aunts and uncles around two very long tables, and then we'd have pie in the north room because we didn't have room to put it on the table. It was wonderful to be able to be at the farm, and these are my grandmother's dishes. And we use these. These are 100 years old, and we've used these dishes when our family gets together, the girls. I have 3 sisters, and when we got together, we used these dishes. And my grandmother would have coffee, and she would pour it into her cup, and then because it was too hot, she would pour it into her saucer, and then she would drink her coffee from the saucer. I remember that distinctly. Also, because they were farmers, they had a lot of eggs, and they would take a piece of bread and wipe up the very last piece of food on their plate. I'm going to clear these dishes away, and I'm going to share a recipe that my mom showed me. And when I was 5 years old, she said, "Do you want to help me in the kitchen?" And I said, yes. So I would take the dough and I would roll it in my hand, and then we would put it in a long baking dish. I'm making potato refrigerator rolls that I have made for many, many years because it was my mom's recipe, and we always had it for special occasions. So I will go through and tell you the ingredients and the wonderful times we have at gatherings. And now when I make it for my children, they say, "Mom, you're making rolls, aren't you?" And I said, "Sure." And it's not that difficult. And people really enjoy them, and we're able to have seconds, and so that I'm going to start in. We first start in with Crisco, and then next is the sugar. And I use 2/3 of a cup of Crisco, and I've used 2/3 of a cup of sugar. And then I'll put the 1.5 teaspoons of salt, and then I'll do the mashed potato. We do all the dry things first, and then we add the liquids. And that was a cup of instant potato, because it doesn't leave little lumps in your rolls. And then we add 2 eggs, and then beat this all together. We're going to be adding the milk, and it's 1 cup of milk. You scald it first and then cool it. Take another pan and set it into some cold water. so that so it won't kill the yeast. Because if you have something very hot, then the yeast won't work as well. Done mixing, I'm going to add the milk and I'm going to add the yeast. It's a half a cup of water and a dry package of yeast. That works pretty well. I use the rapid rise. Now I'm adding 7 cups of flour, and this is regular flour. I don't use a bread flour. This is just a regular flour. And you stir this until it all blends in. And it's a little hard to stir at first, and because there's so much flour in there. But it will gradually come together. And then I'll knead it for about 5 minutes, and then I'll put it in a greased bowl and put it in the refrigerator. And it's coming together, and it's needing to be all the flour will blend into it, and then I will put it down on this bench and knead it until it's all nice and smooth. And I'm kneading the dough, and it usually will take about five minutes. And I'll take it out now so that you can see what it looks like. And then I will grease the pan and put it back in, and then it will probably be about an hour, and it will rise, and then you can go ahead and make your individual rolls. I put some flour down so that it doesn't stick, and you can put flour on your hands, make it a little easier, and it all comes together. I would watch my grandmother do this, I'd watch my mother do this, and now my grandchildren were at a gathering, and I asked them what they wanted me to bring, and they said rolls, of course. And I have made them for the senior center, and they seem to enjoy those. And this is pretty well kneaded enough. And then what I do is take a pan and grease the pan so it doesn't stick. And you just go all around the edges so that it's, and then put it in a warm place. I usually turn on my oven at 200 and put them on the top. What you do is you put your roll in there, and then you turn it around a little bit so that the Crisco gets pretty much all over the top part of it. And then we have a towel, and we'll put over that, we'll wet the towel, and then we'll put this over, and then we're going to be putting it on top of the stove because the oven is on 200, and you have to let it rise at least an hour, and then punch it down, and then if it doesn't rise as much, leave it on until it does. But then you can make 48 rolls out of this. They're smaller rolls, or you can do 24 large rolls. So you take a towel and wet it and put it over the top just to be able to hold the heat in. And then I put it on top of the stove. It'll be a little warm, and then I'll see you back here in an hour. Cheers.
And a clean kitchen is a happy kitchen. Isn't that what you learned in home ec? I did. I was told that I had to clean up after everything that I do. Mrs. Young from Keene Middle, well, it was Keene Middle School, but it was Keene Junior High.
Yeah.
And she taught us how to do everything that we needed to do. We had to time everything out, have everything ready all at one time, keep our area clean, wash all of our dishes. Everything was, and I do that now, and I'm a pretty good organizer for the kitchen because she taught me what to do when I was young.
Yeah.
A lot of kids don't get that nowadays.
No, they don't.
No.
And I always watched my mom, and that's where I knew just how to make something and then put things away as you used it, so you know you used it. I always put my things out first, and then I use it and put it away in my cupboard so that I don't forget. And then everything is pretty clean, and I do up my dishes right after the dough has, while it's neat, been rising, so that at least it ends up with a nice clean kitchen. Yeah. I'm going to be checking to make sure that the dough has risen double. So now we're going to start shaping the rolls. And the rolls have risen double now that I've turned up the oven a little higher. And so we'll cut them into fourths, and each fourth will be 12 smaller rolls, but we can also cut them into a 12 and make larger rolls. It depends on, people. It's just, and what I do is I put Crisco on my knife, and then I put some flour so it's easier to cut them. So I cut them into fourths. I'll put these back in the pan. And I'm cutting these into 12. So each side will be 6. There, I put a little Crisco and flour on it. And I'm going to cut these into 3s. And I'll roll them. And I've already greased the pan. And so that will be a nice little lunch roll, where you can put your filling in and just cut them down the middle. And you'll have to use a little bit of flour so that your hands don't stick. Yeah, there's our large rolls, and then we have another one. cut this in to make 3 more. So I'll put these in here and have them rise approximately an hour so that they'll be double-sized. And then you can, when you take them out, you can cut them down the middle and have a nice salad roll. This is what they should look like. And then you make your fillings, and I will brush them with melted butter, and then that helps them to be a little brown, and then they're delicious. This is a great recipe. We've been using this recipe I've been using it for 50 years. I'm going to make 6 large rolls. These are ones people, that probably men. They like a roll. I have a grandson who will eat 6 of them, and so every time we have a gathering, they kind of expect that I'm going to make rolls because that's what my grandson likes, and he'll take a half a dozen of them by the time the afternoon is over. But it's something. It's an art, and a lot of people don't make the muffins. I mean the rolls because it takes time, but it's kind of therapeutic, and I like doing it. You kind of take your feelings out on your rolls when you're shaping them. But what I do is put some flour on my hand, and then I go around in a circle, and it makes them as round as possible. And I told my mom when I was 5 that I didn't think I would ever do this because it was so much work. I could watch her, and then I would help her as I got a little older. I'd help her shape the rolls because we always had a gathering somewhere for Thanksgiving. And my dad would cook the turkey, and then my grandmother would make the pies and the stuffing and everything else. Up in Walpole, New Hampshire, she was a farmer, and she just loved to cook, and she was a very good cook. As I said, I did grease the pans, and so they're ready to rise double again. And if you're making rolls, I prefer to make them a day ahead, so that then you bake them on the day you're going to eat them. And some of the things that we used to have, we had chicken a la king every Christmas Eve. When my daughter would play in the bells, we'd go to church and we'd listen, and when we came back, we'd have our meal, and it was always the chicken a la king. My mom did that. She started that kind of because it has green peppers and red pimentos, and it looked Christmassy, and we had it on mashed potato, and we probably had a green vegetable or a salad. And she was a home economics teacher, and so we always had a balanced meal, and so she always fed us very well. Same with my grandmother. When we'd go up there, she would sometimes have red flannel hash. and that was wonderful. That tasted so good. And we always had eggs for breakfast because she was a farmer, and she worked for Hubbard Farm up in Walpole. And so she always had lots of eggs, 2 or 3 bowls of eggs out on the porch. And so she would rate them and then sell them down to Fairbanks' store on Elm Street. And she also drove a bus because that's how they did, and she never had a handout for any, for herself, but she always helped other people. She was very giving, and same with my mom. She would also be very giving, and so it was a good life to be brought up in a family that did things for other people. And I melt a small amount of butter, and I use my pastry brush, and I go over them on the side and on the top and in the middle, so that they will brown nicely. And this is melted butter, and what I do is put it over the top and the sides, and they will brown up nicely. So I finished putting butter all over the rolls, and then I'm going to put them on a warm oven so that they should rise double, and then I'll take another one. And these will be the smaller rolls. You can do any size you wish, the dough is very flexible. It's now, because it has risen, it's very easy to mold into whatever shape that you want it to be in. People at the center, usually I made out the menu, and I put tacos on the menu every month. Whether it was, what time of year, it didn't matter. And so people would say, oh, and would put out maybe 10 choices, and they loved that because they had a choice. They didn't have to take anything that was there if they didn't want it. And they would say, oh no, don't give me any beans, or don't give me any onions. And so it took a while for them to go through the line, because their choices, we had to ask, do you want this or that? So we had 2 college girls, and they would help me. And a lady named Janet made the vegetarian, because we had vegetarians, we had people that couldn't eat soy, they didn't want mushrooms, they didn't want spinach, all these things, and so we had to kind of make amends to do those first, and that's what Janet did. And so she worked at the community kitchen for a number of years, and so she knew how to do that, and so she was a really good cook and a good person to work with. The college girls used to come for 3 months and learn how to manage a kitchen, and I would help them to learn things they should do and things that probably aren't the best way to do it. I always used everything from scratch. I never used packaged mixes. I didn't use a lot of salt in my soups. And one thing they liked were the soups. We had chicken soup, and we had a bean soup. And some people wouldn't want to come because it was a bean soup. But at least, you know, they got a good nutritious meal. And that was important for them. And they would say, you know, that if you have any left, then please put some up for me. One thing they liked was a broccoli salad, and it was with cranberries or raisins, whatever I had, and some onions, and I would put it through I put the broccoli through the food processor so that they wouldn't have to do a lot of chewing, because a lot of people that are older don't want to have large pieces of vegetables that were raw. Yes, it's a shame that we can't be all together, and you can do this at home, and it's very satisfying to be able to mold the dough so that, and then you could, if you would like to freeze it, but you can do it. You can do it yourself, and it's enjoyable. And there are other foods that are very simple that I can give you recipes for. If you have any requests, you know, that would be fine. I'm going to finish and put 3 more rolls in here. So I will cut them into probably 6 pieces each. I try not to use too much flour, just enough to be able to hold onto them. And finish up with this pan here. We do the bottom and the sides. And you can do this with your family, your grandchildren. It's a wonderful activity. And for people that will carry this activity along in their life, and they will always remember you because of the rolls. There, we're done. We are done. All right, these over to warm them up. And they rise for probably another half hour. And it's time to put them in the oven. They have risen double, and so we're going to put these in at 400.
Okay.
And the oven is set at 400 degrees because we have some large ones. They'll might take a little bit longer, but usually about 15 minutes to 18 minutes. It might be 20 for the larger ones. It's nice to share with other people. If you make something, you know, it's nice for other people to enjoy that also. And with the senior center, it's about camaraderie and being able to touch base with each other and come back, and hopefully it will be so much better in that time. Yes. Cheers. 2 thumbs up. Have a roll. Don't put words in my mouth. Let me write that down.
Are you ready?